Something unbelievable just happened on the basketball court, and the entire conversation around United States women's national basketball team may have just changed overnight. Because in a performance that fans are already calling one of the most jaw-dropping displays of court control this season, Caitlin Clark didn't just play well, she completely took over the point guard battle. And the most shocking part, she did it while everyone was watching. Fans, analysts, players connected to Team USA, even critics who had spent months questioning whether Clark truly deserved to be considered among the elite guards in the game. But on this night, those doubts started disappearing fast. Because from the very first possession, Clark looked like she was playing at a completely different speed than everyone else on the court. Not just scoring, not just passing, but orchestrating everything. Defenders stepped up to guard her deep shooting range, and she sliced the defense apart with precision passes. They backed off to stop the drive, and suddenly Clark was launching another deep three that barely touched the net. Every possession seemed to end the same way. The defense scrambling, the crowd roaring, and Clark controlling the game like a master chess player moving pieces across the board. But here's where the moment became truly explosive. Because several of the guards widely considered candidates for Team USA's elite backcourt rotation were on the floor during that stretch. And Clark didn't just compete with them, she outplayed them. Assist after assist, momentum-shifting shots. Fast break plays that left defenders chasing shadows. By halftime, music. The arena crowd already sensed something special was happening. Fans weren't just watching a great game. They were watching a statement performance, a performance that seemed to send a very clear message to everyone paying attention. If the conversation about the best point guard in women's basketball is still open, Caitlin Clark just made a very strong argument for why her name should be at the top of that list. But what happened later in the game made the story even more dramatic. Because as Clark continued dominating the floor, analysts and insiders began asking a question that had been quietly circulating for months. A question about the future of Team USA's backcourt. And if Clark keeps delivering performances like this one, that question might soon become impossible to ignore. For months now, the basketball world has been circling around one question that keeps getting louder every single week. Who is truly the best point guard in women's basketball right now? And more importantly, who deserves to run the offense for the powerhouse that is United States women's national basketball team? That conversation has never been simple. For years, Team USA has been stacked with elite guards, players with championship experience, Olympic pedigree, and reputations built over countless seasons of high-level basketball. Veterans who understand the pace of international competition, the pressure of representing their country music, and the tactical discipline required to win at the highest level. But then, something happened that completely changed the landscape of the sport. The arrival of Caitlin Clark. Clark didn't enter the professional stage quietly. She arrived with the type of momentum that very few athletes in basketball history have ever experienced. During her rise through college basketball, she had already built a reputation as one of the most electrifying offensive players the sport had ever seen. Deep three-pointers launched from distances that defenders simply weren't prepared for. Incredible court vision that allowed her to thread passes through defenses that looked impossible to break. Fearless confidence in high-pressure moments. And perhaps most importantly, a style of play that made fans feel like they were watching something different. Something new, something unpredictable. By the time Clark reached the professional level, the hype surrounding her had reached a level rarely seen in women's basketball. But hype alone doesn't win games, and the question many analysts asked early in her professional career was simple. Could Clark actually dominate against the best players in the world? Because Team USA's guard rotation isn't just filled with talented players, it's filled with the best players on the planet. Guards who have spent years competing in the WNBA, international tournaments, and Olympic competition. Guards who know how to defend aggressively, read offensive systems, and control the tempo of the game. Players who had already proven themselves at the highest level. For a while, the debate around Clark's place among those elite guards remained open. Some analysts believed her offensive skill set made her one of the most dangerous players in the sport. So others wondered whether her style of play would translate perfectly to the speed and physicality of professional competition. But as game after game passed, Clark began answering those questions in the most convincing way possible, with performances, explosive scoring nights, highlight passes that went viral within minutes, clutch plays that shifted momentum in crucial moments, and a level of court awareness that made it clear she wasn't just playing the game. She was controlling it. Fans started noticing something else too. Clark wasn't just producing numbers, she was creating energy, a different kind of atmosphere when she stepped on the court. Crowds reacting louder, opposing defenses scrambling to adjust, commentators raising their voices as another deep three splashed through the net. It didn't take long before analysts began asking a new question. If Clark continues playing like this, how long before she becomes the primary point guard option for Team USA? That debate intensified as the season progressed, because while veteran guards continued delivering strong performances, Clark's style of play was clearly changing how teams defended the perimeter. Her shooting range forced defenders to step out much further than usual. That created driving lanes, passing opportunities, and offensive spacing that completely reshaped the rhythm of the game. In other words, Clark wasn't just fitting into the modern game, she was pushing it forward. But despite all of that excitement, one thing remained clear. The battle for the title of PG1, the true primary point guard, was still very much open. Several experienced guards remained strong candidates for that role. Players with championship resumes, players trusted by coaches in high-pressure situations, players who had already helped Team USA dominate international competition for years. Which is why the performance Clark delivered during this particular game shocked so many people. Because on this night, she didn't just play well, she went directly against guards who many believed were ahead of her in the Team USA hierarchy. And instead of simply competing with them, she took control of the entire game. The moment the ball tipped off, something about Clark's body language looked different. Focused, confident, almost as if she understood exactly what this performance meant for the larger conversation happening around the sport. Fans in the arena sensed it almost immediately. Every time Clark touched the ball, the crowd leaned forward. Every time she crossed half court, defenders seemed unsure whether to guard the pass or the shot. And every time she launched one of those signature deep threes, the arena erupted. Because this wasn't just a great performance. It was beginning to look like a statement game. The kind of performance that doesn't just change the scoreboard, it changes the conversation. And as Clark continued orchestrating the offense possession after possession, the questions surrounding the PG1 debate suddenly started looking very different. Because if one player could step onto the court against elite guards and completely dictate the pace of the game, maybe the hierarchy everyone believed in was about to shift. But the real shock of the night was still coming. Because what Clark did in the next stretch of the game didn't just impress fans, who yet reportedly left several analysts and insiders connected to Team USA completely stunned. And when those reactions began spreading through the basketball world, the debate about who truly deserves the title of PG1 reached an entirely new level. The real shock of the night didn't happen during warm-ups. It didn't happen during the first possession either. It happened a few minutes into the game when Caitlin Clark started doing something that instantly made the entire arena feel different. She began controlling every single possession. Not just playing well, not just hitting shots, but running the entire game like a conductor leading an orchestra. And that's when the problem started for the guards connected to United States women's national basketball team. Because the matchup everyone had been quietly watching was the point guard battle. Several guards who had already built strong reputations in the WNBA were expected to show why they were considered elite. Veterans, experienced playmakers, players known for their defensive intensity and ability to control tempo. But Clark had other plans. From the moment she touched the ball in that early stretch of the game, something about her pace looked different. Slower, but somehow faster at the same time. It was the kind of rhythm elite point guards sometimes enter. A state where the entire floor seems to move in slow motion around them. The first big moment came when Clark crossed half court and saw a defender step slightly too far back. Just a small mistake. But against Clark, even a small mistake is dangerous. Without hesitation, she launched a three-pointer from deep. The type of shot defenders are taught to discourage but rarely expect from that distance. The ball barely touched the net. The arena exploded. Fans jumped to their feet. Commentators shouted, and suddenly the energy inside the building changed. But the three-pointer wasn't the most impressive part. The most impressive part was what Clark did next, because after that shot, the defense adjusted. They stepped up higher to guard her range, which is exactly what Clark wanted. On the very next possession, she drove toward the lane, drawing two defenders with her before firing a perfectly timed pass to the corner for an open shot. Swish, assist, then another possession, another drive. Another defender pulled out of position, another pass slicing through the defense, another easy basket. Within minutes, the stat sheet started telling a very clear story. Points rising, assists piling up, the offense flowing entirely through Clark's hands. Meanwhile, the guards she was matched against were struggling to keep up with the pace she was setting. Music and fans started noticing. Every time Clark ran the offense, the defense looked uncertain. Should they press her tightly and risk getting blown past music? Or give her space and risk another deep three? That dilemma is exactly what makes Clark so dangerous, because she forces defenders into impossible choices. If they guard the pass, she shoots. If they guard the shot, she drives. If they help defensively, she finds the open teammate. And on music this night, she was executing that formula perfectly. By the middle of the second quarter, something unusual started happening in the arena. Yet fans weren't just cheering when Clark scored. They were cheering when she controlled the possession, when she slowed the pace down, when she called out plays, when she manipulated the defense with subtle dribble moves and quick passes. It was the type of performance usually associated with veteran floor generals who have spent years mastering the art of running an offense. But Clark was doing it in front of everyone against players many believed were already ahead of her in the PG hierarchy. Then came the moment that truly stunned the crowd. Clark crossed half court and hesitated for a split second. The defender stepped forward to challenge her. And in that tiny window, Clark delivered a behind-the-back pass that threaded between two defenders and landed perfectly in her teammates' hands for an easy layup. And the play happened so fast that even the commentators were momentarily silent. Then one of them shouted, "Caitlin Clark is putting on a clinic tonight." The phrase spread quickly. Within minutes, clips of the pass were circulating online. Basketball pages began reposting the highlight. Fans started tweeting reactions like, "Clark is embarrassing these guards." PG1 conversation just changed tonight. This is next-level playmaking. But the first twist of the night came shortly before halftime, because as Clark continued dominating the flow of the game, the broadcast cameras briefly cut to the bench area where several analysts and observers connected to Team USA were watching. And their reactions looked surprised, not angry, not frustrated, just stunned. Because what Clark was doing on the court wasn't just impressive, and it was making a statement about the point guard hierarchy everyone had been debating for months. And by halftime, the numbers were already ridiculous. Double-digit points, a growing pile of assists, rebounds starting to add up as well, but more importantly, complete control of the offense. The guards expected to challenge her had been pushed into reacting rather than dictating the pace themselves. And when halftime arrived, the arena buzz was undeniable. Fans weren't just talking about a great game. They were talking about a takeover, a performance that looked like it might permanently change the conversation about who truly deserves the title of PG1. But the second half of the game is where the story becomes even more dramatic because Clark wasn't finished yet. In fact, the most shocking sequence of the night was still coming. And when it happened, the reaction across the basketball world would explode. When the second half began, most fans expected one thing: an adjustment. Because teams usually respond when a point guard dominates the first half the way Caitlin Clark had just done. Defenses tighten, coaches redesign their coverage, guards become more aggressive, and the player who was dominating earlier usually faces much heavier pressure. That's exactly what happened when the third quarter started. The guards connected to United States women's national basketball team began pressing Clark harder. They picked her up earlier in the backcourt. They tried trapping her on the wings. They even rotated multiple defenders to challenge her passing lanes. For a moment, it looked like the strategy might work. Then Clark was forced to give the ball up earlier in the possession. The defense seemed determined not to let her control the tempo the way she had in the first half. But what happened next completely flipped the script because Clark didn't panic. She adjusted. And when elite point guards adjust, the game changes. Instead of forcing shots or trying to fight through the pressure alone, Clark began reading the defense even more carefully. She slowed her dribble. She watched how defenders moved. She waited for the smallest opening and then she struck. The first big moment of the second half came during a fast break. Clark grabbed the rebound, pushed the ball up the court herself, and defenders immediately collapsed toward her. But instead of attacking the basket, she delivered a no-look pass to a teammate sprinting toward the corner. A three-pointer swish. The arena erupted again. The defenders looked at each other in confusion because Clark had just turned their aggressive defense into another highlight assist. Then came the next possession. Clark crossed half court and saw the defense sag slightly, unsure whether to commit fully to the trap. That tiny hesitation was all she needed. She stepped forward and launched another deep three. Nothing but net. Commentators nearly shouted over each other. Caitlin Clark is absolutely unstoppable tonight. The highlight clips began spreading instantly. Sports pages posted the shot within seconds. Fans online started typing the same phrase again and again, PG1. But the real shocking reveal came later in the quarter. Because Clark wasn't just scoring and passing music, she was completely controlling the rhythm of the game. Every possession flowed through her decisions. Every offensive set began with her directing teammates. She pointed, she called plays, she slowed the tempo when needed, and accelerated it when the defense lost focus. And that level of control is what makes a true point guard elite. By the time the fourth quarter arrived, the stat line had become almost ridiculous. Points climbing higher, assists stacking rapidly, rebounds continuing to add up. Clark was approaching something that would make the performance even more unforgettable, a dominant double-double. But what shocked analysts even more was the impact she was having against guards considered among the strongest competitors for Team USA's backcourt rotation. Those guards were talented, experienced, highly respected. Yet, on this night, like they were reacting to Clark rather than controlling the game themselves. That difference became impossible to ignore. The broadcast commentators even began discussing it openly. One analyst said something that quickly spread across sports media. If Caitlin Clark keeps playing like this, the PG1 conversation may already be over. Within minutes, that quote was everywhere. Basketball Twitter exploded. Fans started posting side-by-side comparisons of Clark's stats versus other elite guards. Debates erupted in comment sections. Some fans declared that Clark had already proven she deserved the title of the best point guard in music the game. Others argued that one performance couldn't completely redefine the hierarchy. But regardless of which side people supported, one thing became clear. Clark had changed the conversation. And when the final minutes of the game arrived, the arena crowd could sense that they had witnessed something special. Not just a great performance, a statement performance. The kind that forces the basketball world to reconsider everything it thought it knew about the league's guard hierarchy. But what happened after the game might have been even more dramatic, because as highlights of Clark's performance began flooding the internet, the reaction from fans, analysts, and even former players started turning the moment into a full-blown basketball debate. And once that debate started spreading across the sports world, the PG1 controversy truly exploded. By the time the final buzzer sounded and the highlight clips of Caitlin Clark's performance began circulating online, the basketball world was already in full debate mode. Because what fans had just watched wasn't a normal great game. It was the kind of performance that immediately triggers arguments, comparisons, and passionate opinions across the entire sports community. Within minutes of the game ending, basketball pages began posting clips of Clark's deep threes, her no assists, and the moments where she completely manipulated the defense. Each clip spread faster than the last. Fans flooded the comment sections with reactions like, "Clark just proved she's PG1. That was a masterclass. She embarrassed the entire backcourt tonight." But the reactions weren't just coming from fans. Sports analysts began jumping into the conversation almost immediately. Television segments replayed Clark's biggest plays again and again. Commentators paused footage to break down how she read defensive coverage, while my slow-motion replays showed how defenders stepped up to stop her shot, only to get burned by a perfectly timed pass. And as analysts kept reviewing the game, one theme kept appearing in their discussions: control. Clark didn't just score, she controlled the pace of the entire game. That is the defining trait of elite point guards. And when analysts began comparing her performance to other guards competing for roles with United States women's national basketball team, the debate intensified instantly. Some commentators argued that Clark had just delivered the most convincing PG1 performance of the season. Others were more cautious. They reminded viewers that Team USA has historically relied on experienced guards with long resumes of international success. Veteran leadership has always been a critical part of international competition. Still, even the cautious analysts admitted something important. Clark's style of play is different. Her shooting range stretches defenses far beyond traditional point guard coverage. Her passing vision creates offensive spacing that can completely reshape a team's attack. And her confidence allows her to make plays that many players wouldn't even attempt. Those traits make her extremely difficult for defenders to handle, which is exactly what fans had witnessed during the game. Meanwhile, social media had turned into a battlefield. Supporters of Clark argued that her performance proved she was already the most dangerous offensive point guard in the sport. Music. They pointed to her ability to score from deep, distribute the ball, and control tempo, all in the same game. Many fans wrote that Clark represents the future of the position, though. But another group pushed back strongly. They argued that one spectacular performance doesn't automatically erase years of excellence from veteran guards who have already helped Team USA dominate international basketball. Those fans insisted that experience, defense, and leadership remain critical factors when building a national team roster. The debate quickly became one of the most intense basketball conversations of the week. Former players even started weighing in. Some praised Clark's confidence and creativity, saying her style of play brings excitement that helps grow the sport. Others emphasized the importance of respecting the legacy of players who built the foundation of women's basketball long before Clark arrived. Despite the disagreements, almost everyone agreed on one thing: Clark had delivered a performance that demanded attention. The numbers alone were impressive, but it was the way she controlled the flow of the game that truly impressed analysts. Possession after possession, the offense moved according to her decisions. She slowed the pace when needed, accelerated it during fast breaks, and constantly forced defenders to make impossible choices. That kind of court awareness is what separates good point guards from elite floor generals. And on this night, Clark looked like exactly that, an elite floor general. But just when the conversation seemed to settle into the usual sports debates, another twist appeared that reignited the controversy. Because a league insider later hinted that Clark's performance had sparked a much bigger conversation behind the scenes. He took conversation about the future direction of Team USA's backcourt. And if those discussions continue gaining momentum, the PG1 debate might be far from finished. The most fascinating part of Clark's performance might not be the points she scored or the assists she delivered. It might be the conversation she started. Because performances like this force coaches, analysts, and fans to rethink long-standing assumptions about team hierarchies. For years, the guard rotation of Team USA has been built around experience and proven international success. That strategy helped the team dominate global competition for decades. But Clark represents something slightly different. A new style, a new offensive approach, a point guard capable of stretching defenses in ways that traditional systems rarely expect. And when she dominates games the way she did in this performance, it raises a simple but powerful question. What happens if she keeps doing it? If Clark continues delivering games like this one, the PG1 conversation may no longer be hypothetical. It could become the defining decision facing Team USA's coaching staff in the future. For now, nothing official has changed. No roster decisions have been made. No public announcements have been delivered. But the basketball world is now watching the situation closely because sometimes a single performance can shift an entire conversation. And if Caitlin Clark continues proving she can control games against elite competition, the title of PG1 may not remain a debate for much longer. Now, we want to hear from you. After watching this performance, do you believe Caitlin Clark has already proven she deserves the title of PG1? Or do you think veteran guards still hold the edge when it comes to experience and leadership at the international level? Drop your opinion in the comments below because this debate is heating up fast. And if you enjoy breaking down the biggest basketball performances, controversies, and behind-the-scenes stories shaping the future of the sport, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next update. Because if Caitlin Clark keeps delivering performances like this one, the next chapter of the PG1 debate could become even more explosive.